is the chronicle of how I concluded 21 years of life with my egocentric and domineering spouse, Timothy. My name is Isabella. I'm a 45-year-old part-time homemaker residing with Timothy, who's my age. Our daughter, Emma, is 21 and presently an apprentice hairstylist in New York. Timothy is a corporate guy, and thanks to his early success, we've never faced financial struggles. Consequently, I never complained about his numerous hobbies like sailing and mountain biking, which practically took over our garage. However, Timothy never shared these interests with Emma and me. Even after Emma was born, he was seldom home on weekends. We hardly ever had meals together during weekdays, and he rarely attended any of Emma's school events. He'd reluctantly show up at important days, but it was evident he didn't want to be there. His displeasure would manifest in angry outbursts if things didn't go his way. He despised criticism, and whenever I voiced my concerns about his self-centered attitude towards Emma, he'd explode in anger, tossing things around. The fury in his eyes was genuinely terrifying, and I always felt a sense of fear when confronted with that look. Divorce crossed my mind many times, but I lacked the courage. Besides, when Timothy was in a good mood, he showered Emma with affection, and I couldn't bring myself to take away her only father. Looking back, I now realize that I was likely making excuses to rationalize my own inertia. Every summer and Christmas, Timothy enthusiastically took Emma and me to visit his parents. His family ran their own business, but Timothy, being the eldest son, chose not to take it over. Instead, my brother-in-law and his wife managed the business and lived with my in-laws. Despite pursuing the corporate path, Timothy seemed to harbor a complex about my brother-in-law. In front of him, Timothy would boast about how exceptional he was, but his family appeared indifferent to his bragging. They simply let it slide, paying no attention. While I idly stood by, it was challenging to deal with Timothy, who not only made me handle all the chores at his parents' house but openly mocked me. However, his family suddenly became solicitous when we departed. They always expressed gratitude for our visit. Despite Timothy's behavior, I didn't harbor any real animosity towards his family. In fact, I often pondered why Timothy was the way he was when his family seemed so amiable. My mom raised me on her own after my dad passed away when I was in the 8th grade. Back then, she was a part-time nurse's aide but worked diligently to become a registered nurse. She tirelessly supported me through vocational school, and thanks to her, I landed a job in caregiving. I deeply admire my mom for her resilience. I now live alone, and my aunt, my mom's sister, resides nearby. I wanted to visit my family home as I still worried about Mom. However, Timothy, who gladly spent days at his own home, always ensured our visits to my place were brief, just a couple of hours. He'd grumble under his breath during the 3-hour car ride. Timothy was all smiles in front of my mom, trying to portray himself as a good person. Fed up with his behavior, I suggested, let's spend our summer vacation visiting our own families separately. But Timothy absolutely refused. Tired of dealing with his selfishness, I began visiting my mom with Emma when he wasn't around. Once Emma passed her cosmetology exams and landed a job in New York, life with Timothy became even more unbearable for me. He suddenly became intrusive, focusing solely on our home life. Even when Emma moved out, he continued his controlling behavior. If I came home slightly late, he would yell at me, but he never curtailed his own outings. Even though he kept me on a tight leash and berated me continuously, I felt a sense of relief when he wasn't home on weekends. Occasionally, when he returned early and found out I hadn't prepared dinner, he would erupt, saying, "Couples should have their meals together. It's just common sense." I was taken aback by his contradictions. With Emma having flown the nest and armed with my caregiving qualifications, I contemplated making things work on my own. Perhaps it was time to seriously consider what lay ahead. Just as I began pondering this, my aunt called me early in the morning. She said she urgently needed to talk, and immediately I felt it was about Mom. After sending Timothy off to work, I headed straight for my parents' house. When I got there, both Mom and my aunt were present. Mom, who I hadn't seen in a while, looked a bit thinner. "What's going on?" Instead of Mom, my aunt spoke up. Well, you see, hearing my aunt's words, my mind went blank. Mom has cancer and was given a year to live. I couldn't comprehend what my aunt was saying, and as my mind swirled, Mom reassured me, don't worry. I've seen many people recover from this illness in my line of work. The survival rate is high, she said cheerfully with a smile. Oh, you, my concerned yet frustrated aunt said. Amelia is exaggerating. Mom playfully slapped her on the back, laughing. I was speechless, seeing Mom trying to keep the mood light. Then Mom reassured me, don't worry, we're fully insured, you know. Her words were full of conviction, and as I looked into my mom's eyes, memories flooded back of how she bravely supported me without a word of complaint. Even after Dad passed away, tears began to flow uncontrollably. Hey, I'm not dead yet, you know. Mom tried to turn it into a joke, but I could see she was also holding back tears. My aunt was doing her best to keep it together too. From that point on, my thoughts were consumed by Mom. I deeply regretted secretly meeting someone else behind Timothy's back. Is there anything I can do for Mom, who has worked so hard for me? Then I remembered something Mom once said. I'd love to spend time leisurely watching the ocean. That's it. I'll give Mom a vacation while she still has the energy. I'll make Mom's wish come true. Feeling determined, I first contacted our daughter, Emma, and informed her about Mom's condition. I also told her I was considering a divorce depending on Timothy's reaction. Emma said she'd come home on her day off tomorrow. The next day, Emma and I waited for Timothy to return. He arrived home late but was delighted to see Emma, who had unexpectedly come to visit. I told Timothy about Mom and said that for possibly her last long vacation, I wanted to travel with her instead of going to this parents' house. Timothy was furious. You can't be serious. We're going to my parents' house. That's the priority here because I'm the husband. But this time, I couldn't give in. Like you care about Grace. I care about my mom too. What's wrong with that? Do you hate my parents that much? That's not the point. I'm talking about mutual respect. Even though this was about Mom's health, Timothy showed no understanding. Tears filled my eyes from anger and sadness. Then Emma spoke up. Mom, just let it go. Divorce him, she said calmly. Her words enraged Timothy. You think you can make a fool out of me? Who do you think puts food on the table? But Emma was unshaken. Then, Dad, do you realize what you're doing is bullying? You always put your fun first and never cared about Mom or me. When I hit my teens, suddenly you became all overprotective, shouting at me daily and calling me an ungrateful daughter who doesn't value her father. You don't care about Mom or me. You're just a kid who wants to be pampered, she stated. Emma's words opened my eyes more than my own thoughts ever had. See, this is what happens when you let a kid live alone. I don't care about your family. If you don't want to go to my parents' house, let's get a divorce. Timothy was trembling with rage. I looked into his eyes, my resolve hardened. Fine, let's get divorced, I said, ignoring his shouts. I packed our bags, took Emma with me, and left the house. After that, I went back to my parents' home and immediately started preparing for divorce, sending the divorce papers through a lawyer. Timothy had thought I would break down and apologize, but upon seeing the divorce papers, he signed them in a fit of anger. And just like that, our divorce was finalized. His family apologized many times, but Timothy's last words were, "You'll regret this." I exchanged glances with my in-laws, baffled by the situation. Mom looked sorry, thinking it was her fault that the divorce happened. We assured her multiple times that it wasn't true. We chose our vacation destination based on where Mom wanted to go. We worry without a younger person around. Emma, an apprentice hairstylist, arranged to come with us, securing understanding from her workplace. Mom truly enjoyed herself during the trip. Looking at Mom's peaceful sleeping face, I had to hold back tears, realizing this could be our last time together. Both Emma and I deeply enjoyed the trip with Mom. Afterward, I returned to caregiving, supporting Mom in any way I could. I wanted to make the most out of the remaining time to be with Mom as much as possible and to give back for everything she's done. Then nearly a year later, we found out Mom's health was miraculously improving. Mom and I held hands, shedding tears of joy. When I told Emma, she broke into loud sobs over the phone. There are still precautions to take, but we decided to celebrate. Aligning with Emma's day off, we invited our aunt and held a modest dinner party. It's a girls' night out. Mom watched Emma, who said this with an innocent smile, looking truly happy. Just then, the doorbell rang. A frail and emaciated Timothy stood at the entrance. I was at a loss for words, seeing how much Timothy had changed. "Then I've come for you," he said softly. I was stunned, and I didn't know what to make of it. When Emma came over, "What are you doing? This doesn't involve you anymore. Just go." She raised her voice, trying to push Timothy out. Just as Emma and I were about to push Timothy out, Aunt grabbed my hand. "Let's at least hear what he has to say," she said, smiling warmly at Timothy. "Are you kidding me? You know what kind of person he is." Emma raised her voice, to which Aunt whispered, "But it might be interesting." She grinned mischievously. Though unsure, we let Timothy in, knowing Aunt, who was pretty tough-looking, was close by if things got out of hand. Emma and I exchanged looks, then allowed Timothy to enter the house. Timothy began talking without waiting for us to initiate the conversation. Here's what Timothy had to say. After my divorce with Timothy, he quickly started dating a hostess in her 20s from a nightclub. But as soon as he financially backed her dream of opening her own business, she vanished and stopped responding to his messages. Now in debt, Timothy turned to my family for help. But given the circumstances, they refused and even kicked him out, saying, "You brought this on yourself. Fix your own mess." To add insult to injury, he's also on the list for corporate downsizing and is being pressured to quit. It seems like he's running out of options. "You are the only one who truly loved and understood me," he said. "You're in a stable job in healthcare, right? Why don't we team up as a couple again and support each other? You were waiting for me, weren't you?" I was stunned and almost lost for words, but I managed to say, "We're not a couple anymore. We're strangers." Timothy retorted, "You weren't this cold before. If we can start over, we can even live together in this house. Right, Emma? Wouldn't you be happy if your parents got along?" He even tried to get support from our daughter, Emma. But Emma simply stated, "No, I wouldn't be happy at all. In fact, I'm happier now that Mom laughs more living with Granny. I even look forward to coming to this house. So I'm happier now than when I lived with both of you. I have no intention of getting back together with someone so selfish and immature." My words flowed more smoothly than I had expected. Upon hearing this, Timothy stood up, flaring at me with his eyes filled with rage. "Who do you think you're talking to? You people are getting too cheeky. Just shut up and do as you're told," he screamed. I wondered why I'd been scared of him for so long. I wasn't afraid of Timothy anymore. Keeping my composure, I told him, "Please leave." Timothy screamed, "You've got to be kidding me." He, in his own excitement, didn't take the words to heart. "Don't you dare judge me." He lunged at Mom. That's when Emma spoke up. "This counts as assault, you know. I'm recording this. Want me to upload it on social media, or should I just call the cops?" She aimed her phone at Timothy. Timothy lowered his raised fist but tried to grab me again. I, however, looked straight into Timothy's eyes and said, "I'll be contacting a lawyer for a restraining order. I'd like to legally ensure that you no longer interact with us." Emma replied, as if it's just a bluff, and she laughed. Although I was filled with joy at how strong Emma had become, memories of the pain I had caused her filled my mind. "I'm sorry. I never wanted to put you through this," I said, tears of regret spilling over. "It's okay. I see it as a cautionary tale. I'm not a kid anymore, and I can choose who matters to me. But there was a time when it hurt to feel like I was the reason you wouldn't divorce. I'd appreciate it if you could be a little more decisive." Moving forward, I told Timothy through the door, "I'll call the police," and I never met him after a few visits like that. Just as I was discussing calling the police next time, I got a call from my in-laws. They apologized for their foolish son, expressing their remorse. They didn't want to cause any trouble, especially not for our granddaughter, Emma. So they decided to take responsibility as his parents. That was the gist of it. They called back Timothy, whom I had kicked out, to help with the family business and try to re-educate him. but he couldn't stand firm by himself. I learned to be strong without blaming others. While I do think Timothy got what he deserved, I can't help but be thankful for the strong, compassionate woman Emma has become. Rather than harboring resentment, my greater wish now is for Timothy to gain emotional independence. I hope he's living his life somewhere I don't know about. Months passed and life settled into a new rhythm. Emma continued her career as a hairstylist, thriving in her independence. Mom's health miraculously continued to improve, and we cherished every moment together. The bond between us grew stronger, and we found solace in each other's company. The painful chapter with Timothy became a distant memory, replaced by the warmth of love and resilience. One day, as we gathered to celebrate Mom's improving health, the doorbell rang. We were surprised to find Timothy standing there, a shadow of his former self. He looked frail and worn, his eyes reflecting a mix of regret and desperation. "I've come for you," he said softly, his voice carrying a vulnerability I had never witnessed before. I stood there speechless, unsure of how to respond. Emma, ever the protector, raised her voice. "What are you doing? This doesn't involve you anymore. Just go." She tried to push Timothy away, but my aunt intervened. "Let's at least hear what he has to say," she suggested, smiling warmly at Timothy. Despite our reservations, we allowed him in, uncertain of what to expect. Timothy began to speak, sharing the unraveling of his life post-divorce. He spoke of failed relationships, financial struggles, and professional setbacks. The once self-assured man seemed humbled by life's hardships. "You are the only one who truly loved and understood me," he said, his eyes pleading for a second chance. Stunned, I struggled to find words. Emma, on the other hand, stood firm. "We're not a family anymore. We've moved on," she declared, her tone unwavering. Timothy, desperate for connection, proposed a reunion, suggesting we could support each other once again. But I couldn't ignore the pain and turmoil he had put us through. "We're strangers now," I replied, my voice steady. "You've changed, and so have we. We can't go back." Emma echoed my sentiments, expressing her happiness in the newfound peace of our lives. Timothy, unable to accept the reality, erupted in anger. He lashed out, attempting to regain control. Emma, now stronger and more resilient than ever, remained unfazed. "This counts as assault, you know. I'm recording this. Want me to upload it on social media, or should I just call the cops?" she warned, holding up her phone. Timothy, realizing the gravity of the situation, backed down. But even in his desperation, he tried to appeal to Emma's emotions. "Wouldn't you be happy if your parents got along?" he pleaded. Emma, mature beyond her years, responded, "I'm happier now than when I lived with both of you. I have no intention of getting back together with someone so selfish and immature." The encounter left me with mixed emotions. While there was a part of me that felt sympathy for Timothy's struggles, I couldn't forget the pain he had caused. As he left, defeated and dejected, I couldn't help but hope that he would find a path to redemption and emotional growth. Life continued its course, and we embraced the joy of each day. Mom's health, against all odds, continued to improve. The scars of the past gradually faded, replaced by the love and resilience that define our new chapter. Emma and I stood united, stronger than ever, ready to face whatever the future held. As I reflected on the journey we had undertaken, I couldn't help but appreciate the strength that adversity had cultivated in us. The pain of the past had shaped us into individuals capable of facing life's challenges head-on. And as we moved forward, I held onto the hope that Timothy, too, would find his way to healing and self-discovery.